Guys, I got bad news. I forgot to say, hey, want to hear a story? I know. I understand if you need to unsubscribe. I get it. I'm sorry. Tech bros, the same folks behind AI generative art, cryptocurrency, Web3, non-fungible tokens. Terms that I'm sure some of you, or most of you, or all of you, are tired of hearing of, especially since we here at Crispy Tavern have covered these before. They have tried to infiltrate the Dungeons and Dragons space, specifically with Gripner, a company that wanted to bring NFTs into your D&D games by selling non-fungible Dungeons and Dragons characters. That project fizzled out into almost nothing very quickly, basically immediately upon launch, just given all the controversy that surrounded its release and the very minuscule amount of hype that it generated. But what about a project that's a bit more substantial? What about a project that had hundreds of thousands of dollars of Kickstarter funding and over $1 million of investment from big capital venture firms? A company with serious licensing deals, legit products, actual releases. A company like Evil Genius Games. There's a decent chance you haven't heard of the company, but you might have heard of some of their products. Stuff like D20 Modern's remake, Everyday Heroes, which brought D20 Modern into the modern day using Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition mechanics. That Kickstarter got almost $400,000 of funding. Not bad. The company was on the up and up, but all of a sudden, everything fell apart for them. So what happened to Evil Genius Games? How did they go from 20 plus employees to a skeleton crew? Why did so many of their employees get laid off? Why did so many of them resign very publicly? Why is this company surrounded by controversy? And what do tech bros have to do with it? It's a crazy story, guys. A story that involves lawsuits with Netflix, investments of over $1 million, legal threats against journalists, Reddit post takedowns, and even Zack Snyder. Yeah, he's involved in this too. It's gonna be a wild ride, y'all. So, without further ado, what the hell happened?
We make turn-based RPGs on-chain. And if this is the future, then the future isn't dead.
But before we really get in it with Evil Genius Games, I want to give credit to EnWorld and author Morris. Morris is the guy behind EnWorld as a website and behind the NE Awards, the big tabletop role-playing game award show. So this guy, he's got some pull. And he's also apparently an incredibly talented journalist. This man's reporting on Evil Genius Games is unparalleled. This video would not be possible without that article. It's linked in the description, as are his follow-up pieces. Okay, late 2021, Evil Genius Games is founded, and their first big project, the thing that put them on the map, Everyday Heroes. D20 Modern is a fairly popular RPG, but a lot of people were interested in playing an updated version of it, and that is what Everyday Heroes sought to do. Use Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition mechanics to bring D20 Modern into a new era. And like I said earlier, it was very much a successful project. And this was Evil Genius Games' first venture. Dave Scott, their CEO, clearly had something good going on here. They would go on to also get a large deal with Legendary Pictures, which allowed them to make TTRPGs for Pacific Rim and Kong. I mean, those are some pretty great franchises. Pacific Rim especially. I love that movie. It's a shame it never, ever got a sequel. Had so much potential. But anyway, the point is, these aren't just popular with me. A lot of people like these movies. So being able to make TTRPGs based on them, yeah, it's a good deal. Especially since that Kickstarter for those games, it also got a 6-figure amount of money for Evil Genius. Yeah, we're on a win streak so far. On top of all that, they got a significant investment from multiple capital venture firms. Yeah. a bit more of a controversial quote-unquote win, and maybe a loss in hindsight. But look, companies need money to function, and 7 figures, over $1 million from these capital venture firms, it's nothing to scoff at. Though these firms like Zeal Capital Ventures or Side Door, they had their own agendas, specifically in the Web3 world. There was a lot of Web3 talk from a lot of the companies that were investing into Evil Genius Games, and this would cause some internal friction in the company, though we'll get to that later. For now, we're still talking about their wins, and despite the fact that these investors might have some ulterior strings and agendas, I mean, there's a good chance that these crypto guys and tech bros, they're just giving Evil Genius Games a 7-figure amount of money out of the, goodness of their heart. So let's still count it as a win for now. We'll cap off this little bit of the video with saying that Evil Genius, on top of their deals with Legendary, also had a deal with Netflix. They would be developing a tabletop role-playing game for a brand new IP debuting at Netflix, a sci-fi space opera epic that would be launching with 2 movies from an acclaimed director. I mean, this was a big deal for Evil Genius and for Netflix. I mean, a sci-fi space opera, a brand new property, that sounds like the perfect place to make a tabletop role-playing game. And Evil Genius, they were hanging a lot of their hopes on this new game based on this brand new franchise. So, what was that franchise? Well, it was Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon. But you know who's not a critical failure? Today's sponsor! Today's episode is sponsored by Rune Fable, the creators of the gorgeous Alchemical Origins dice set. Now, this Kickstarter was funded in 1 hour flat. And for the next couple of weeks, you have a limited opportunity to keep that support coming. They have 6 different designs themed around alchemical regions, all with vibrant tendrils of color. Oh, and if you want something that stands out in a big way, they also have the Arcana D20 with wireless LEDs to make every roll gorgeous and magical. And of course, these aren't the rank and file mass-produced dice that you might have seen on Amazon, alright? These are artisan-made, handcrafted to turn your stories into legend. If you guys are interested in the Alchemical Origins dice, then you can head down into the description down below where you can pick them up from the Kickstarter. Thank you so much to Alchemical Origins for sponsoring today's episode. As always, supporting our sponsors does support us. And without further ado, back to the tea. Oh boy. Okay, so here we go. Rebel Moon obviously released to a critical firestorm. People did not like this movie. Even Snyder Bros hesitated to watch it, and that says a lot. The franchise is in limbo now, and very, very extremely unlikely to go anywhere at this point. However, I will say that all the stuff I'm about to talk about, this is before the movie release. Evil Genius nor Netflix had any idea that Zack Snyder would be cooking absolute trash in his kitchen. So just keep that in mind. The point is that at this point, Evil Genius thinks this is a really big win for them. I will also note that this was before all those capital venture and crypto bro guys invested 7 figures into the company. They didn't have that money yet. So having a deal with Netflix, yeah, it's good for Evil Genius and Dave Scott, the CEO. So, anyway, they would start development on the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, all for Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon. And things would be going great up until the Gamma Trade Show. You see, Evil Genius, they would attend this trade show and show off some of the stuff they're working on. Nothing big, really, but a little bit after that Gamma Trade Show, Netflix would terminate partnership. That's bad. Like, to make this clear, Evil Genius claims, allegedly, they had the game practically done. It was a sellable product by this point in its dev cycle, and Netflix completely pulled out and canceled everything. This is a disaster for an indie company like Evil Genius. All of that work, all of that investment that they put into making this game, it was all for nothing, and now they don't have a product to sell. This is horrible, so obviously Evil Genius would be fighting back against this. It is worth asking, why did Netflix pull out of this partnership? Well, according to a Gizmodo article written by Linda Codega, Netflix was accusing Evil Genius of breaking confidentiality at that Gamma trade show. Quote from the report: according to the complaint, the first instance occurred when Evil Genius Games, alongside 2 Netflix employees, distributed images during a February trade show as part of a retailer buzz campaign. The second time was when Evil Genius Games uploaded 2 non-final teaser cover images onto the back end of its site for the purposes of retailer pre-order. And through administrative error, they accidentally made the portal accessible to the general public. These 2 non-final images were uploaded to social media in May, and it was after this that Netflix terminated its agreement with Evil Genius Games. Oh boy. So yeah, Netflix would not take this lying down. They would issue counterclaims against Evil Genius, and this would be a back and forth for them. It was very imperative that Evil Genius gets something out of this. Their product getting canceled will be disastrous. Dave Scott himself had a lot to say about the matter. He even claimed that Zack Snyder himself adored the products that they were creating. And as we all know, Zack Snyder has really good taste in media, so I mean, we might as well take his word as gospel, right? Now, from this lawsuit, Dave Scott, the CEO of Evil Genius, he was hoping for $3 million, allegedly, according to employees cited in that EnWorld article. But why, you might be asking? I mean, it's reasonable that he wants something out of this, but at the very least, he should really just be hoping to get the game released. I mean, they've been working on this product. Why does he need $3 million in cash from Netflix? Well, according to the EnWorld article, it's because Evil Genius Games in general needed the money, because they were running out. Alright, around the same time, 2023, Evil Genius would put out a pay freeze for its employees, which is bad. People aren't getting paid. The EnWorld article, it's filled with testimony from employees saying that they were not getting paychecks on time. Freelancers and contractors saying the same thing. They were struggling to get paid for the work that they were doing. This was obviously very demoralizing. Beyond that, high-ranking employees were also being laid off. People like their freaking marketing manager were being let go from the company. This is all really, really rough. So you could see why allegedly Dave Scott would really want that $3 million out of this Netflix lawsuit. Beyond the problems with the lawsuit, there were also problems with the investors. According to that EnWorld article, investors were quote-unquote getting cold feet and pulling out of their projects. So yeah, the walls were really closing in around Dave Scott to figure something out. Though some of this problem, we have to say, it's not entirely on the investors, it's also, allegedly, on Dave Scott, the CEO. Returning to that EnWorld article, they had this to say about his spending habits. A retail engagement program was described to me, the writer, the brainchild of CEO Dave Scott, which required an entire team of telephonists to call small hobby stores across the United States repeatedly in order to ask them marketing questions with the promise of free promotional material, standees, coasters, window clings, and more, and which cost the company thousands of dollars. Beyond this and flashy convention appearances, it was clear they were burning through their cash at a rate that might be more than irresponsible. And oh boy, you think it's just a money problem? We're getting into the ethics. You know how I mentioned that those Web3 investments caused some ripples in the company? Well, Yeah, a lot of people are creatives in the TTRPG space, and those same people don't like AI generative programs that these sort of Web3 chuds like to push. So it's reasonable that some employees at Evil Genius Games were more than a little bit worried about the use of this technology in their products. AI art was pushed internally to create in-game magic items or to create page borders. They even had to have an entire meeting to discuss the use of AI art, and Dave Scott pledged that they wouldn't be using it. In fact, it wasn't just AI art, it was Web3 tech in general. People in the company did not want to work on this, but Dave Scott just kept on getting involved in it. In fact, he got so involved that he wrote an entire white paper about how Web3 is going to revolutionize the TTRPG space. Like, understand that bro was talking about how these Web3 companies that were investing in us, they weren't going to have any say in the way we run our brand. And then immediately afterwards, turned around, wrote an entire article dick-sucking the ideas that these Web3 companies espouse. Like, come on, man. It was so bad, in fact, that the head of engineering at Evil Genius Games, he quit the entire company after the release of this article. And the specific reason why he quit? Because Dave Scott tried to rope him into it, despite the fact that Terry, the head of engineering, had nothing to do with the article being written at all and disagreed with it fundamentally. So Dave Scott lost his head of engineering over an article that I guarantee not even like 100 people read. It is worth noting that according to the article, Scott's version of that event is slightly different. He says he went to Terry beforehand and asked him to help write the white paper, and Terry expressed his discomfort, citing ethical issues with Web3 technology. Scott says, I didn't listen to him, and pushed ahead, and after a couple days when he realized I was pushing ahead, he quit. Scott went on to say in response to the resignation, he called a meeting to discuss blockchain, at which point he decided not to use these technologies. You hear that? That's a cow. Because that's gonna age like milk. Oh god, he gets even worse than this. It wasn't just ethical concerns with the general way the company's interfacing with this Web3 tech. It was also the fact that employees were allegedly quite uncomfortable at Evil Genius Games. Now, for legal purposes, this next bit is lawyer approved. So, I'm not accusing Evil Genius Games of treating their employees in an illegal manner. I cannot verify any of the information cited in the EnWorld article. And even if I could, a lot of this behavior would not constitute anything illegal. I am simply sharing some testimonies that were shared with this journalist here on my YouTube channel. I am not accusing Evil Genius Games or Dave Scott, the CEO, of any illegal behavior. Okay? Okay, Dave, here we go. So, employees in the EnWorld article allege that the company had problems with misgendering. The company had problems with overworking employees. We already talked about how employees were allegedly not getting paid on time, but on top of that, a lot of employees were uncomfortable with their work hours. Employees were promised benefits that never happened. And most cringy of all, Dave Scott himself would allegedly claim that he preferred to hire women. Why? Because they are easy to manipulate. I will note in the same EnWorld article, the author interviews Dave Scott, and he denies all these claims outright, citing that he worked for a DEI program at Amazon. So he couldn't have done any of this. Take that as you will. But anyway, it's clear that all of this, it's falling apart. People aren't getting paid. People are being laid off. People are resigning. It's a disaster. So, let's get to the end game. The reckoning. The new year has rolled around, and Evil Genius Games has paid its workers, employees, and contractors. Did it pay everybody? Well, according to Dave Scott, they have no outstanding debts. According to some of the people in the EnWorld article, they would disagree with him, though that's between him and them, I suppose. Beyond that, the Netflix lawsuit, that would get dismissed and settled, with this joint statement being released by both parties in the aftermath. The parties are pleased that they were able to amicably resolve this issue. Netflix thanks Evil Genius for their hard work and professionalism. We will not be releasing a Rebel Moon game, but stay tuned for more amazing cinematic adventures and upcoming sci-fi project. And thank you again for your amazing support. If you are a retailer who pre-ordered the Rebel Moon game in advance, be on the lookout for a follow-up email within the next 7 to 10 days on how to process your refund. Oh boy, this did not go the way Dave Scott wanted, did it? They were not releasing that Rebel Moon game. And by this point, Rebel Moon has released. It has become a failure, so I don't see why they would release a Rebel Moon game. It would be a disaster no matter what. But honestly, as somebody who likes reviewing trashy things, I am curious what it would look like. Hell, I mean, Everyday Heroes was good, apparently, so maybe this could have been the savior Rebel Moon needed. Who knows? Netflix might have missed out on the bag, but the point is that they weren't releasing this game that they apparently had ready to go. The material had to be quote-unquote destroyed, according to the EnWorld article. Again, according to that same article, they would recoup development costs, but Dave Scott did not get his $3 million figure, which I don't need the article to tell me, because almost immediately after this lawsuit got settled and dismissed, he laid off more people at the company. Great. Oh, and hey, remember those internal divisions caused over Web3 use? Remember how Dave Scott's been trying to say that they're going to distance themselves from the use of Web3 technologies? They're not going to use AI art. I'm going to listen to my employees, la la la. Well, guess what? In a plot twist that nobody could have seen coming, an article was released by the guy behind the Blockchain Founder Fund, all about how TTRPGs are about to be shot in the future. And guess who the main character of that article was? You guessed it. Dave Scott and Evil Genius Games. Yeah, so much for distancing yourself from Web3 and being unbound by the chains of the investor. I mean, when he claimed women were easy to manipulate, I guess he was just projecting, because good lord, these Web3 guys got him wrapped around their frickin' finger. In the aftermath of this article being released, multiple high-ranking employees at the company would leave, including someone who is featured in the article. Chief Product Officer Faith Elizabeth Lilly, Organized Play Manager Michael Bramick, and Convention Coordinator Ivis Flanagan. They all resigned, again, very publicly. And with their resignations, I want to leave you with some words from Dave Scott during his interview with that EnWorld article's author. It all started with Faith. I've been talking about making her a co-founder, and she said, "I'll do it, but under the condition that you don't do Web3. And I said, I promise. I promise." Faith, in case you forgot, was one of those people who resigned. She was also cited inside that EnWorld article. Good freaking lord, man. With these resignations, a lot of people were now asking questions about Evil Genius Games. I mean, the statements that these former employees were putting out were damning. And so Scott put out some statements of his own on his website. He put out an ethics code around technology. He put out a letter to the community, and neither are coherent enough to warrant the oxygen it would take me to breathe life into their words. They are the definition of vague corporate schlock. I will not disgrace your ears by spouting their words. Good lord. They're so out of touch, so disgraceful, and it's no wonder that people were leaving this company in droves. What was once 20 plus employees is now a skeleton crew, reduced to more quote-unquote realistic expectations. That should be the end of the story, right? We're done in 2024, but as you might have guessed, up until 2025, the story continues on, and by God, it gets worse. Gets worse. So, Dave Scott, he made a promise that Web3 tech would not be involved. It's pretty obvious that he was gunning to break that promise. And if we're already breaking it once, we might as well go all the way in. At the consensus convention run by CoinDesk, Dave Scott would make an appearance. There were a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs at this convention, but Dave Scott would be proudly representing the TTRPG industry. Aren't we lucky? And he would be giving his pitch to these fellow entrepreneurs. Part of his pitch was this, according to a separate EnWorld article to cover this situation.
But I'm not the best person on the staff. Meet Jeff Grubb. Jeff Grubb is the father of modern-day Dungeons & Dragons. He was the head writer for games like Elder Scrolls, Baldur's Gate, and Starfield, and is an luminary in this industry.
Grubb made it clear earlier this year that he had no current involvement with Evil Genius Games. In my previous delve into Egg, it turned out that Grubb's participation in Everyday Heroes was that he wrote the foreword. A little bit of a false framing. I'm starting to think we really can't trust this Dave Scott guy, huh? I'm starting to think we really can't trust this Dave Scott guy. What a shame. But yeah, he would continue on to talk about his NFT ambitions in tabletop role-playing games. Yes, in the year of our Lord 2024, this man was still on the NFT hype train. The line will go up any second now, guys. But how will NFTs be involved in tabletop role-playing games? Well, they do have the first step down. Evil Genius does have some online frameworks around their games. They were building out D&D Beyond-like platforms, another money sink that was cited inside the EnWorld article. But Dave Scott would elaborate a bit more at this consensus convention.
Imagine a scenario where you could actually buy NFT utilities that are exclusive to these licenses. You could actually pilot Gypsy Danger. You can carry Rambo's M60. All of these that have value that can be bought, sold, and traded. But more importantly, in the Roblox fashion, we're going to allow other people to actually create their own NFTs, which can be thrown onto a marketplace where they can buy, sell, and trade those adventures as well.
Just this week, in fact, as I'm recording this video, an article was posted in the most reliable-looking magazine of all time. Seriously, this makes The Defiant and Dungeon and Discourse look like the pinnacle of journalistic integrity. This article is just non-stop glazing Dave Scott, and I will note that the author of this article, they have never published anything beyond this hype piece, which is very suspicious. They also have no contact info, no bio, no nothing. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that that's weird. But anyway, this brand new journalist with no profile pic, no bio, and no contact information would be singing Dave Scott's praise, including claiming that his products are now making millions of dollars, which is very suspicious given how he laid off a bunch of his staff. If you were making millions off of these products, why'd you have to let everyone go, man? This article would also cite him as a serial entrepreneur. I'm sure by pure coincidence, he would also call himself a serial entrepreneur when being interviewed for that EnWorld article. Again, I'm sure that's just a coincidence. The reason why I bring this article up in the first place, though, is because that whole Roblox idea, that they're making the Roblox of tabletop role-playing games, it comes back up here. It's clear that he still has these ambitions a year out from this convention appearance. It's just sad because it's clear it's probably not going to happen. He also would try to take down bad press. There was a Reddit post that circulated that made that EnWorld article just a tad bit more popular. This wasn't like a viral post or anything, 1,000 upvotes, nothing to scoff at, but like, it's not destroying a company. Dave Scott, though, he had something different to say about this Reddit post. Hi, Calculus Bear. My name is Dave Scott, and I'm the CEO of Evil Genius Games. About a year ago, there was a post highlighting an article by EnWorld that predicted the fall of my company. The article is one-sided. It cited many inaccurate facts that are really hurting me personally and hurting my company. Since then, the thread has been archived, but for some reason it still shows up on the front page of Google search. A year later, this article is destroying my company. That was embarrassing and caused a bit of a Streisand effect because while the original post didn't garner a lot of attention for that article, this begging from Dave Scott would garner more attention to that article. An article that would receive a vague legal threat. The author, Morris, would publish this legal threat and point out that this same legal threat has been copy-pasted all over the internet. Yeah. EnWorld, the people behind the Ennies, would receive a copy pasta legal threat. Not exactly the most threatening thing. Now, the author of that article, he did have contact with Dave Scott, and he asked him, "Are you suing me?" And Dave Scott responded by stating unequivocally that no, he had no intentions of suing EnWorld. Pussy. But yeah, that's where we're left off. I don't recommend that you support anything that Evil Genius Games has made or will make in the future. They have tried some more Kickstarters ever since the publishing of that EnWorld article, and they've gotten respectable amounts of money, though not anywhere close to where they were before. I don't see this company ever becoming the Roblox of tabletop role-playing games, and I don't see why anyone would even want that in the first place. These NFT, Web3 guys, they're all about innovation, but it's not innovation to help people. It's innovation that turns everything into a stock market. Innovation that gamifies our lives. And I love games as much as the next person, but games are meant to end at some point so we can get back to the real world. We don't need every single thing to be an object for gambling. We don't need Web3 to revolutionize the TTRPG market. We're good, Dave. We're good. We don't need you to change things. Go back to being a marketing specialist or whatever the hell you want to do. Keep your crap out of our games. But anyway, that is the story of Dave Scott and Evil Genius Games. I hope you guys enjoyed this retrospective. If you did, and you watched the whole entire thing, then leave the comment, "Stop it, Dave," to let me know you made it all the way to the end of the video and were loyal to the tavern. If you want to see more of our content, then you might enjoy this retrospective on another TTRPG company failure, this one being Streetlight Studios, who tried to make a Baldur's Gate 3 clone for Pathfinder. It failed miserably, and it's linked in the cards. But before you go, please do leave a like on this one, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern, and if you want to support us directly, then check out our Patreon. Your support helps make these videos possible and also gives you access to tons of exclusive content, like an exclusive Discord server where you get to chat with me personally. In essence, like, comment, subscribe, support. I will see you all next time. Farewell. And with their departure, I want to leave you guys with